The young coach that you're speaking of, Mike McDaniel's, just got a big extension through 2028 now. Jonathan Jones, CBS NFL Insider, is reporting and confirming. Had to do it, right? Had to be done.
Had to do it. I mean, he's the reason that your offense is so potent. Obviously, we love Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and all the little track stars that they got in South Beach. But at the end of the day, the person installing these schemes, the person really getting these guys to understand why they're doing the things they're doing is Mike McDaniel. I think it's a brilliant move to get him extended. If you don't have Mike McDaniel in that building, are we going to have any faith in the Miami Dolphins to get things done offensively? Obviously, Tua is a polarizing guy. We've seen him go one of two ways. And with Mike, it's much better.
Can I throw the turd in the punch bowl?
Yeah.
Okay. I love Mike McDaniel as an offensive play caller. I think they're innovative, creative, they're fun, they're dynamic, they're exciting. But I think at some point the toughness is going to show up, and it has to show up. Mike McDaniel is a new wave coach. You know that. You've been around this league. You know that. You've been around. The new wave coach seems to be pals with his players. And at some point, there has to be a situation where you say, look, we got to be tough. 1-6 against playoff teams last year, good teams. 1-6. That doesn't bode well for Mike McDaniel. And at some point, look, in September, they're scoring 70. In December, when it's tough time, they weren't playing very well. And that's the big hurdle for me and Mike McDaniel. You go to the practices, Mike, they're loose. Guys step in and out of drills, and they didn't have their helmet when they were working with the Commanders. They didn't, and I'm old school. Don't get me wrong. I'm old school. I know that. But this is a little bit much for me, and he's got to prove to people that it can work when it's tough time.
I can tell you this, and I never want to question the toughness of a football team. And I understand where you're coming from, because on paper it would seem that the toughness is the thing that you're talking about towards the end of the year, playing these big-time opponents, not being able to step up to the occasion. As a Chicago Bear for most of my career, we would play in cold weather a lot. Anytime we'd go to Miami, I would wilt. You would say, I'm not tough. You would watch the film and you would say, there's something wrong with that guy. I was healthy. The only thing was the change in climate. And I'll tell you, it is really, really, really important to weigh the change of climate for some of these teams. So when Miami's going up the East Coast to go play in Buffalo, if they're going to play the Jets in New York, that's a really tough ask when you've been out there beating and banging in 90 and 80 degree temperatures to go up there 30, 25. It's, a tough pill to swallow mentally to get out there and play the same brand of football you've played.
But if you had to ask yourself who the toughest teams in the league are, tough teams, who's tough? You'd say the Ravens are tough no matter where they play. Yep. You'd say the Steelers are tough no matter where they play. You would ever look at the Dolphins and say they're tough?
Yep.
Ever.
And especially given what they lost this offseason. You lose Robert Hunt. You lose Christian Wilkins. Probably like, if you're ranking the toughness, so the guys like who are the enforcers on that team, that's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So they're not beating those allegations anytime soon. And it's also by design. Like when they're drafting this Dolphins team, they are picking the undersized running back that runs a 4.3, right? They're picking the undersized wide receiver that runs a 4.3. Like it's by design to have this speed on the field. But then, as we've said, December, January, it hasn't worked. It flat out has not looked good when they've had to play in the cold. Some of that may be to his arm, but some that's also just Mike McDaniel has to find some answers going forward. And we'll see. But I do think if you're Miami, especially like given that team and who he is, where you are, you're going to get more fans with a coach like Mike McDaniel than a tough Brian Flores.
100%. I'm more. Right?
You're making more money.
I'm more a Dolphins
what they got
fans
right now
because of what they do pre-snap and what they're able to do after this. I mean, they're fun to watch.
They
but you
they
need
are
to win games when
right.
it's crunch time. Is your point?
Fun is great, but you got to win. I mean, the Chiefs are fun to watch and they win.
Yeah, they find a way to do that.
Yeah,
that helps.
Yeah, we're not comparing Tua to Patrick. Fun. We're not comparing Tua to Patrick Mahomes.
You want to talk about a tale of two sides of the coin there with the Chiefs. I mean, so much fun offensively, but also tough. Within the middle of their offensive line, the front of that line, the inside three. Those guys will kick your ass for 70 plays in a row.
Correct.
If you ask them to. They'll also protect Patrick 50 times in a game and not sniff a run block, but that's by design.
Right.
And to your point about the Ravens, it's the same point there. But the defensive side of the ball, that's tough.
That's what we need to see, though. And I think they're going from Vic Fangio last year to Anthony Weaver. We'll see. I mean, he's obviously, you mentioned the Ravens, one of the toughest teams. He comes over from the Ravens as D-line coach, so.
But they hated it, Vic Fangio, because he was old school. Everybody in the place hated him.
And now we love the Philly defense because he's old school.
Right.